Hello and welcome to another episode of Frame and Reference. I'm your host, Kenny McMillan, and you're listening to episode 110 with David Lanzenberg, DP of the show Wednesday. Enjoy.
The thing about those, the Kinos that I like is just have you used the camera LUTs in them?
No.
They had, so on the back of the LED panels, you can set what camera you're using and it won't create color outside of the gamut of that camera.
Really?
So you can't blow out, you know how like on the Alexa Reds the Alexa Mini and whatnot, the Reds tend to go weird. Like it won't make those colors. And it'll also adjust the white balance so that it's correct to that camera. So it has it's got Alexa, Venice, DXL, and probably one other one.
Amazing.
I'm getting 100 TLCI out of those things.
Wow. No, that's amazing. I got to check that out because always, with a bit of, even on Wednesday, we had a bit of some firework gag, and I did struggle a little bit with the reds and the blues and all that. And had I known, that would have been amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I do know that the sky panels, like when you're in CCT mode, they're super accurate.
Yeah.
For the most part, but only to what you set it to, not like color representation, like spectrally, they're not amazing because those LEDs are pretty old. They nailed the old sensor, but the LEDs need to be refreshed.
No, I think they could have done a bit of refreshing for sure. Yeah. No, very cool. No, that's great.
Did you? I saw Ari put out an article. They said you might be the only person that I've met who actually has used the orbiter.
Yeah.
What's that thing like? Because it's enormous.
It's enormous. It's big, and I think I had never, we needed something that was going to be for moonlight. We had pushing through this round window on our set, and I wanted something that was sharp. And I don't, sometimes most of the time I don't tell my gaffer, listen, I want you to use this light. No. I kind of have a discussion about what the thought is, what the idea is, something sharp, and what do you think? What's out there? And there's so many amazing lights that are being brought out. I mean, every year, and it's so sometimes. I mean, it would, I would be on my phone again all the time. So I think the one thing that on that day we were just we had quite a few days of pre-lighting, and he had this light. I didn't even see it in person physically. He had this light on a pipe or something, and it did the job. And then we used it for some other things. It wasn't exactly like the most strong kind of powerful light, but it did the job. And then we used it also for some other floor balance for Christina Ricci. It is a big light, but when you're like sometimes you have the tools that you have.
Yeah, sure.
And you have that, and it seems to work, and it did a good job for us. I know Ari was very excited when they found out we used that lamp. They did a big thing about it, but it did okay. It is massive. I hope that they maybe as lights go forward that they get smaller. It feels like we're going back in time, and camera's only going to get bigger. We're going to have a huge blimp. It's the same thing with the lights. But it did the job. We only used it for those two instances for bouncing, for a little kick in the eye, and for a moonlight. And it was decent. It was good.
Yeah. And you just use those because the gaffer had it. Because why wouldn't you use like a Fresnel or like a HMI light or whatever HMI?
Yeah, I mean, the HMI is I think the quality, we got the quality, which is a sharp quality out of the light. We didn't have all the oomph that we wanted, but it did what we wanted. We didn't go with an HMI just because we could not calibrate sometimes the color. We had less control over the color. And the HMI would have been good, but I think ultimately to turn things on and off, I think there's a little bit more range to do. We didn't have the oomph that an HMI would have given us for sure. And it was, I think it was the gaffer's light. So we went with it. And and visually, it did what we wanted for the night sequences through that one window. I think it was, for me, it was a bit like a Jolico. Jolico would have been interesting also. But again, it's the color choice. We had more range with choosing what color we wanted. So,
yeah. Did you make it over to Cinegear a couple? What was it last?
Yeah. No, I was there. Yeah, I was there. They yeah.
See anything cool there that you liked?
The one night it was so busy, and Ari was making a big marketing thing with the whole Wednesday.
Oh, they had that set. Yeah,
they had that set. I know, which is they did a good job. I thought they did a pretty good job. It was pretty funny. They had this poor girl playing cello, for hours. I was so I felt horrible for the guy. I think there was two young girls playing the cello, but I mean, it's the same bloody tune. I mean, she's probably went home and threw up.
Yeah.
Just sick of that song from, was it Painted Black or whatever it was. But the show, it was interesting, but I saw some lights, and I had worked on another show right before they shut down on Severance, with Ben Stiller, which was a great show to be on. And they had these cue lights. I had never seen those cue lights before, like really nice, punchy little Fresnels, LEDs.
Just called cue light?
I think it's like a Q5. I think it's called. I have to look. I think that's what it was. I look it up, but it was really impressive because I used them quite a bit, and I like the punch. I'm kind of, honestly, I'm a little sick of the soft LED light vibe.
I think everyone is. It's been 30 years of that. Kino started it, and then we just kept doing it for.
I know, but it's sometimes it's nice to have a little 2K or a little Tweety or things like that. It's kind of nice if
Oh, Filex.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, Fiilex. Filex.
I liked it. I mean, I liked it again. You don't have three burly guys putting gels, on the set, but they were punchy. I did a bit of skip balance with those, and it had quite a bit of punch. I was happy with that, and I looked for them at the Cinegear, and I think I looked for them, but it was too late already. They were wrapping up their case, and I was asking them to open them up, and no.
That happened to me. So I was there doing event coverage. The company that I write for, Pro Video Coalition. I'll do event coverage of NAB and cinema and stuff. And that same thing happened to me when a buddy of mine was like, "Have you heard of this thing, Hobo Light?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Let's go." So we run over to the Hobo Light, and they're literally packing everything up. And I was like, "Wait, let's do a video real quick." But they're expensive. They're very expensive, but they're very well built and pretty surprisingly bright for how small they are. I mean, the biggest, really, the size of a couple baseballs.
That's amazing. It's called a Hobo Light?
Hobo Light, yeah, like a hobo.
I gotta check that out. That's funny. It's a good name.
But, yeah, I asked him about that, and he said that it was because I guess hobos were not homeless people; they were traveling work people.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Which is why they had their little bag. It was like tools and shit. So he was like, Hobo Lights, they're small, so you can take them on gigs and stuff.
Yeah, that's good. I gotta check it out. I mean, from what I understand, it's for now that they're coming out. It's just the LEDs that are just pushing through a piece of plastic for now,
right.
Type of glass. Where the original for now, so they're just bouncing into, a piece of convex mirror or reflector inside back towards the Fresnel piece. I'm hoping that maybe someone has one of those out, or they do seem quite big still. Those Fresnel at the time, they do seem quite big and have a big ballast that follows. So there's a way to make that smaller. That would be great.
Yeah. The what is it? The Nanlite Evoke, the 1200, and then that massive one that Aperture came out with. It's like a 2600. I mean, the Fresnel is
massive.
Enormous. It needs its own yoke
to
hold the light on, and then the light itself is enormous too.
Yeah, no, it's phenomenally big. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, sorry. My wife just got back from Toronto and quite a great time. Yeah, I know, great trip. Great trip she had. But yeah, no, but good stuff. And I think Cinegear was really packed. I was very impressed with how busy it was. It was nice to see a lot of old faces and people. You know what? There's another tool that a friend of mine, Grip, Richard Mall, had come up with. He did. Well, originally it was called the slider, and I think it's called something like the Spider or whatever it is called now. Somebody else took over. He took it from him, and they're building them. Hudson Slider.
Oh yeah.
Slider, Hudson Slider. Yeah. But that was pretty impressive, I thought. And I'm not because he's my friend or whichever, but it's very sturdy, and I was quite impressed for that piece of equipment.
Totally.
Yeah.
There was the two things I was excited to see was I finally actually got to see the light bridge reflectors.
Okay.
Because everyone keeps talking about those, or you'll see them in, Instagram posts or whatever. But I'd never gotten to like actually see them in person. And the few times I saw them at NAB, or not NAB, but like Cinegear last year when it was in the convention center, it was just everyone was crowded around them, so I never got any like FaceTime with them. But I like the idea of repeatable, thin, mobile reflectors and stuff. I think those. Yeah. But again, you're going to get relatively soft with those, but it pulls the light away, makes it a little more natural.
Yeah. No, it's good. Yeah, I mean, I think stuff that's modular is fantastic. It's just having a variety of lights that are small and easily. I mean, I'm a big fan of the on Severance. We had what do we have? We used a lot of the Astera tubes, and we had everyone's using that with the cover wagon type, or whatever it's called. It's nice. It's not bad, I mean, it's for what it is. It's impressive. These days when these guys, I think, using, on that set, we don't use, there's not many lights, it's very, very moody. And I think most of the time that's the only lights that were used for that.
There's the reason I was laughing is because I've started to play, I think during the winter break that I take for this podcast, I'm going to go in and find every time someone mentions the two. I have 115 episodes right now. It's going to be 115 times people saying it. And then we use the tubes that like, I don't know how they beat anyone to the punch on that, but that's every single DP uses those tubes.
They're I mean, they're very low profile. And now with those stocks that have been adapted for them, it gives you that kind of a bit of, it softens it up a little bit more. And these cameras, now you have like the Venice or, 3200 ASA and all that. It's crazy. I mean, you really don't need a whole lot of time, but one needs to still be able to light, for daytime, as required. So, the tube's not going to do the but so you gotta know your bigger heights as well.
That's the thing too, right? Like all interiors, you can kind of get away with a lot. And then the second you're anywhere near a window or anywhere near outside, suddenly everything is underpowered and you've got 12 stops of ND on it.
Yeah, no, yeah. God, yeah. Oof. That's amazing. I mean, I do like the big lights. I mean, I think for the interiors, if, I still like the, even mixing it up, having some big maxi brutes, if you're pushing a bit of that hard, beautiful tungsten light coming into a room, that's always really nice with a bit of gel, sticking. That stuff I hope doesn't ever go really away, because that quality, I still haven't seen it in some of the lights. And also maxi brutes are amazing. There was a light that I've yet to work with, and it's very temperamental light, but it was called the Wendy light. And there was this gaffer that invented. You heard about? You remember this thing was like the master, and I think there were like a bunch of MR60. I forgot what it was, but it was a wall of them. Yeah, and they were like an impossible light to work with, but certainly did. I'm curious to see what the quality of it does, and see how that works. And yeah. So all good stuff. Still amazing stuff that's coming out, but I think there's still some great stuff also that one can work with.
We certainly are in a time where it feels like, we, especially when digital cinematography started, everyone was like working towards like, oh, it needs to be better, it needs to be more like film. I've argued for years that the film look that everyone's chasing is not a real thing, and it's just what we used to say when digital looked like absolute shit.
Yeah,
we wanted it to look like the nice thing, not necessarily celluloid.
No, I completely agree. But I still think it's great. If I hear a lot of up and coming DPs that are the crazy thing. I hear a lot of up and coming DPs that will strictly, that's part of their deal. They only shoot film.
Yeah,
I heard that, and I was like, really? That's their shtick. They said that I will only use film. I mean, I don't know if it's real or not, but I was really impressed by people who can really put their foot down and do that. I was like, I remember when I went from camera assistant to DP on music videos and whatnot, I remember that for like a year and a half, I ate lots of lentils. And I didn't say, I only shoot 35, Right. It was kind of, in one, so it was interesting. But the whole thing with chasing the film look that went on, I remember many years and all these different apps, the grade, this is the 5218 grain, or this is the Fuji, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, it is pretty sharp, that stuff. And I'm happy that the new cameras, like I haven't worked with it yet, but the Arri 35, now instead of this 4K stuff, like this is like an arms race, who has the most K, now we're going back to like, okay, let's just go back where things were fine. There's no need to necessarily, unless it's like, Lawrence of Arabia, then sure, big skies and big, beautiful landscape. But I'm all for, I'm curious to know more about the 35, just to chip and bring back those lenses as well.
A buddy of mine ran some tests on it, and the dynamic range on it is stupid. I mean, you basically can't clip it. It's perfect. It's amazing. He was able to recover. I think he was 5 stops under or over, and he could just bring it right back, and it was fine.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, 5 or 6, obviously more in the highlights because that's how Arri rolls. But he said that the grain, the textures, he like tested them all, and then he was like, it feels, if for the first time in Ari's history, it feels a little gimmicky. Like he was like, I don't really see where I would use it necessarily, but I guess if you've got a real, hands-on production, where the editor's gonna really mess with it.
Bizarre.
But otherwise, the sensor is fantastic.
The sensor is fantastic. Wow.
And they, 15, 6, I think it was 16 to 17 stops. And then also they fixed all of that, like earlier when I was saying the red that kind of goes magenta, like the brake light thing that people would always run into. They fixed all that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Huh. Oh, I should have had that. Yeah. No, good. Yeah. That's amazing. No, that's good stuff. That's crazy. You're talking about 15 stops. When you say, this thing, and the latitude is crazy. It reminds me of the music video days, and I'm just like, I feel like an old man now saying all this shit. But basically, it's like I remember doing this one music video. I remember that finally, it was on film, 16 mil. I'd been trying for so many years. I've been quite a few years prior to be bleach bypass. A spot. And I was really, and my director, the director was Philip Endelman. I'd done a lot of music videos with Lenny Kravitz, and this one was a band called Elephant, and we were shooting in New York at the Chelsea Hotel, where my mother used to live. But anyway, we had a 16 mil camera. We had this girl that was stunning. I think she's like now like some Maybelline. I don't know what she does, but anyway, she's pretty much not wearing much. It's just very top and very risque kind of thing, and it's black and white. And there was a program that Kodak came out with where you could just take a still and sell the idea to whoever the label and say, here, this is what it's going to look like. Will you authorize us to shoot bleach bypass? So when you do bleach bypass, you have like a stop and a half, 2 stops, one way or the other. That's it. And it was kind of a very nervous sort of feeling. And you don't know if there's anything in there until later that evening when you call, when you get your one light dude calling you, it's like, everything's fine, But that was funny to, for that, you really, that's the one thing I do miss a little bit is like, I do sleep better now because of digital. But I do miss the days of, you really are taking a little bit of a chance and there's other places now who take chances, but certainly this was an interesting, that brought me back to that moment where they said, sure, shoot bleach bypass. And it looked great. It's fantastic. It's either black or white. There's nothing else. It's not great.
I actually just watched that music video like 30
you did?
minutes before. Yeah.
Oh,
I was going through your website and I was like, oh, that looks cool.
Yeah. It's fun. That was fun. That was like, and then during the music video, we had, it was the early days of there was Light Panel had made, their light at the time was they were the early ones to come out with LEDs. And the diodes are like, massive, they were like ridiculously huge, but they had a ring light. And we had the ring light on the bloody camera. And I remember we're in this room shooting and the girl, she's on the bed and she's whatever. And I look to my right and there's a cop. There's a guy fully dressed like New York cop eating something. And I'm looking at the guy holding the camera and this is not a big room. And I look back, the director's there, he's looking at me and we're like, what's going on? And we're shooting. And then, reload the camera and we talked to the cop and the cop was like, I don't know if this is the right direction, and he's like giving me. And I was like, oh my God, this guy is like telling us like he's not really into. And then he left and that was that, it was pretty funny, So you gotta love.
He probably did a couple episodes of SVU and thought he, knew what was up.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But it's these moments that you're kind of like random, we're shooting a girl that's not wearing a whole lot and somehow there's a cop there in the room who clearly was not part of the production. It's pretty funny stuff.
It is weird how like I was shooting this spec ad in the arts district and this clearly homeless man was walking towards us. Not like he was going to do anything. He was just walking. But we had the Steadicam guy there. And as he got close, he goes crossing and then moves. I was like, what?
He knew the lingo. He was like, oh yeah, crossing.
It's like, man, he must have been a PA back in the day and never made it.
Oh boy, that's hysterical. At least he made himself an extra that day, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, he wasn't bothering him. He was just grabbing a beer somewhere. Yeah. But to your point, I did want to bring up to your point about like younger DPs only shooting film and stuff.
But I don't know if it's true or not. I just heard this and I was kind of taken back by that. I was like, wow.
I think it's, I don't know how logistically how many people can actually do that, but I do think there is a very, millennials and certainly Gen Z have come up in an age of things being absolutely ephemeral. Is that the right word? Where it's just everything's, there's no physical anything. Right. And especially with streaming, one day you can watch something, the next day you can't. And
right.
So I think shooting digitally doesn't feel real to a lot of DPs. So by shooting film, I think on one side it is a little bit of ego. Ooh, I did the real thing. You guys are doing, But on the other hand, I do think there is kind of this feeling of like, oh, I did a real thing.
Yeah.
It's not ego. It's like this is tangible, which there's not a lot of tangibility in the world right now.
No, that's a good point. I do think I think that is quite possible. I mean, I think I was impressed by the assurance to say, for me, it was more like the assurance to say, nope, not going to shoot digital. This is who I'm going to be. And I was like, wow, that's pretty ballsy. I was impressed with that. This business there's a lot of everything. Yeah. You definitely don't hear about, you do hear people who can say, I'll put my foot down, but they're at a certain level in their career that they can do that. So for younger, DPs or artists to say what they really truly believe in I thought I was impressed by that. Not that I don't know if I would have done that or if I could have done, I mean,
right.
Shoes on the other foot, but
might need to have a side job to pull that off.
You need to, daddy and mommy, but yeah, exactly. Yeah. But nonetheless, I'm impressed, and if they can do that, I mean, that's sure. I haven't watched, and I should, a show like Euphoria, but that was I know some of the production that worked on that and shot on film, and I hear that I think some of the producers were the younger producers who had not really worked with film, they were shocked by how many lights were needed.
Right. Yeah.
They were like kind of, they had budgeted one way and things went the other. But
all that movie's at night too, so they really and it's all party lights a lot of times too. So it's not even like the power of tungsten; it's gelled to shit.
Wow, I got to check it out. I mean, there's so many
show.
It's a good looking show. Yeah, I gotta check it out.
And didn't they shoot positive film? I'm pretty sure they made
so they shot reversal instead of color negative. Yeah.
I actually got a sticker from them. They got Ektachrome 100.
And you know what? That's so funny. You pulled out. My wife just when she was shooting some stills in Toronto, she just pulled exactly that Ektachrome 100 out of her camera to take it to the lab just now.
Yeah.
It's great film. You know, I took some of that film. This is something I've done before in the past which I do actually more and more for every show. It's basically, you know, creating its own stamp. And one of the shows I did with the Ektachrome, and they just brought it back out. It was a little show called Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, something for Netflix that we did. It was a kind of a Sabrina, the teenage witch, you know, much darker. But the director and I wanted to always, you know, do something a bit original to it as far as the look. And we discussed a lot. He wanted to, you know, can we shoot Ektachrome? And I was like, well, there's not, you know, first, obviously, we can't shoot Ektachrome because no one's going to let us shoot film for a show like this. But eventually, what I did is take a lot of stills with that 100 Ektachrome, a lot with the color swatches from the clothing. You know, the clothing had been picked, the fabrics anyway. We had an amazing, I forgot his name, but an amazing production costume designer. And this was in Vancouver, so it had a bit of that gray sky at the time we were shooting. So we had these swatches, and I would take a lot of pictures of these colored swatches as well as the sets that were being finished. And then with the stills, I was able to send it to the colorist in LA and build a LUT for it. That was basically similar to the Ektachrome and kind of tweaking a little bit. And with the test, and we kind of brought it back to where we wanted. But I mean, it wasn't like we tried to make it look like film with the film look in the grain. Right. It was really that color, that the way the light reacted, or the way, you know, I can't say film, but the way the chip would react to the colors and
the density.
The density, yeah, the way with sometimes you would be slightly washed out. And that was kind of like building our own film stock, and that's what we did a lot with the 100 Ektachrome.
There's actually, I have an F2.
Yeah,
it's not within this is the
yeah, it's.
Pulling off.
It's a gray one. It's an amazing camera. Yeah, it's also a weapon. You know, you can.
Yeah, I've dropped it a couple times. I had to get the weights level though.
Oh yeah.
When I did drop it, it like unseated the prism viewfinder and it broke the little tab, so it doesn't like I can't use the meter at all. But
yeah,
still works fine.
5.6. Yeah, 5.6, Kenny. That's a
5.6 would be there. So I got a GFX 50R, the Fujifilm medium format camera.
Okay.
One.
Okay. Wow.
And I have a Nikon adapter for it, and I put the Nikkor 50mm pancake on it. And I've shot film with that thing because that would be like my travel camera, my travel film camera.
Right.
But now that I have, you know, it's on a medium format sensor that's 50 megapixels, that lens is so fucking sharp.
Is it?
It is outstandingly sharp. I tried all my other lenses. They're not that, all my other Nikon lenses are not that sharp. That pancake is a marvel of optical engineering. And it's like a 1.4, 1.8.
1.4, was it, but this was for 35, or there was medium format, the glass that you had?
Gonna keep bringing out keep bringing out show and tell.
Bring it.
So the sensor on this one is ever so slightly bigger than full frame 35.
Full frame 35, yeah.
So this is actually the size of a Alexa 65.
Got it. Oh,
yes.
LF?
No, bigger than that.
Okay. That's big. Super 35 is I thought it was smaller than the 65, but anyway, yeah. Anyhow, but the lens you have is so retrofitted to fit on that camera.
Yeah, so it's got a little. So this 1.8, yeah, and it's just a little.
Oh wow.
1.8 Nikkor pancake.
But it's a 35 millimeter lens.
50.
But I mean it's.
Oh yeah.
But the edges are completely sharp, or do they? There's a little
completely.
Really.
It just, I think because it's so thin, it projects a lot wider than it should. Because like the normal 50, Nikkor 50 doesn't cover.
That's what,
and the 35 does.
Yeah. And amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Interesting.
I love this camera. This is great.
Yeah. I'm gonna check that out. Yeah, no, my the cameras, yeah. Where's I lost and bought and lost cameras, all terrible with cameras. But one of my favorite cameras that I learned a lot when I first came to LA was the little Leica CL.
Sure.
With the 45 on there. It's a tiny little camera. It's a pain in the ass to focus. I don't know if it's a rangefinder or whatever it is. It's like a tiny little square and you got to really line it up. This is not photojournalism whatsoever.
Right.
And, but a lot of fun. So yeah, no, good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. Now I feel like an idiot because I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's just smaller than the 65 sensor, but anyway, that's not what I'm focusing on. I did want to bring up the whole the film look thing because obviously a lot of people I've noticed when they want to shoot film, they don't want to shoot 35, like for a music video or whatever. They want to shoot 16 because they want to elucidate the fact that they're shooting film. So they want all that thick grain. They want the more apparent gateway, the lower dynamic range. But then something like Oppenheimer comes out and it's almost exclusively shot on IMAX or 70. Yeah. I feel like there has to be 35 shots in there. There has to be.
I think there is. The cameras, I've never worked with IMAX, but the IMAX cameras are very, very loud cameras.
Yeah.
They have to be blimped. One of the things, I don't know, I didn't see the aspect ratio change at all. It's so booked. I tried to watch it on IMAX, but the bloody thing is booked for the next 2 weeks. You can't get any seats. So I had to go watch the regular 35 screening, which was fine.
Yeah.
But I remember when Nolan did Dunkirk, as you remember, the aspect ratio kept changing. And I was always very curious. And I realized, obviously, it was because of, the IMAX versus 35. And that's where I really noticed the difference. And he kept that, which I kind of liked, that it changed throughout. That it was, I don't know if it might have bothered some, but it was interesting. But those cameras are loud. So I don't know. I think your instinct is right. I don't know how you can put a IMAX camera right there because those things, they're not quiet. And you have to blame the hell out of them. Yeah.
I was able to get one seat at the City Walk IMAX.
Oh, wow.
And it's next week on a Monday at 10 a.m. And that's the only one where I could get a seat that wasn't in the first 4 rows before it's completely gone. But we did go and see it at the Century City.
Yeah.
In just regular digital IMAX.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think at one point I started to recognize that the shifting, but I do know that they shot a lot of not 1570, but the VistaVision, whatever, 70 millimeter, 65, and I think they did that for dialogue scenes, but I still, in my head, I'm like, logistically, I feel like, unless they just said, fuck it, and they just went straight, we're never shooting 35. But point being, gorgeous film. But I'm wondering if that movie, with all the excitement that that everyone's had about it, will push people away from this idea that the film look needs to be halation and gate weave and thick grain.
Yeah.
And more to what you were saying about the colors and the tonality.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. I mean, I'm all for texture and I'm all for that, but I think the pendulum is so hard with some of the lenses as well, where it just becomes the blooming, the bouquet, the this, the that, the this. I think that there has to be, I think it swings back the other way at times. I mean, I'm all for it. If it's, it's the conversation, if a director calls me and he's like, listen, this is what I want, and I'll be curious to hear his point, but definitely it has to go back. But I will say, I think there's something interesting that's happening with these digital cameras. I find I look at them more and more a bit like, film stock as well. Mm. You have your Alexa tone, and definitely they get tricked out quite a bit, whether before we start, and we do stuff like, building LUTs and whatnot. But definitely each camera I find they have truly their own identity. One thing I have enjoyed working with, also with the, I know might be controversial with some people, but I do like sometimes the some of the sensors that the Monstro has come up with, or the Red has come up with, and it has had its own thing where it does, for me, it has very much a similar kind of quality. As to me, a lot of texture in the sense that it didn't try to be perfect. It tried to be its own thing, which was interesting. I did a few shows where I remember watching the image and going, this is reminding me of this film, weirdly enough, the way it's coming about. Not to say that, I fall on one sword for every project that I do, and it's just that one camera and only that one camera. I think every job is different. Sorry.
But I find that I really liked the dragon sensor, and I know that that's pretty controversial because it was kind of very textured, but I thought, you watch House of Cards and stuff. Yeah. It's great,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the time there was, this was like the beginning, and I don't know how many other shows were, I think it's still very much in infancy. I shot with the dragon on a movie called The Age of Adeline, and that was with originally,
which kind of looked like House of Cards.
Kind of looked like House of Cards. I mean, we tried to tweak. We had an amazing colorist, Stefan Nakamura out of Company 3.
Oh, he does all Fincher shit. Maybe that's why it looked like it.
Well, maybe it doesn't look like too much like House of Cards. I mean, I think I think he did. Maybe he did. I don't know, but I remember that.
I know he did Fight Club, or he did 7.
He did 7. Yeah, I think he did 7. Look, amazing colors. But I remember the whole thing back then. This was like 2014. There was still options for directors coming in to say, well, no, I'd rather shoot film, and because of that and these choices. And this was a young director I worked with, Lee Krieger, and this was the second project working with him. And he was like, we're shooting film. This is a $25 million movie with Blake Lively and Harrison Ford. Vancouver was slow, and we ended up with an absolutely fantastic, absolutely amazing crew. But this was with Lakeshore, who were very nice, but they were very adamant about shooting with the red. And we had never worked with red, and we ended up with these Dragon cameras, and we made it work with everything that was happening. But I remember one day in the middle of our shoot, the DIT comes over, James comes over, and he's like, there's a couple of things that happened on that show that really funny. But anyway, one of the things that happened was James comes over, he's like, we have a small issue, but everything's fine. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, red called, and there's something about the glass inside the filter. Well, apparently it's upside down. It's inside out. It's the wrong. This was the infancy of red, and I was like, I can't believe what we've already shot half the movie, and it's like, I mean, I didn't
like the OLPF really was backwards.
I think so, yeah. And then it was that was the Dragon, and true story. But everyone was, I didn't see, you work with the parameters that you have, so which is sometimes, you do the best.
Yeah. On Wednesday, did I see you shot LF for everything, but then for thing, you shot on a Komodo?
Yeah. I needed something that was small enough. I knew I was going to need to be at kind of like quote unquote eye level thing for some of the running stuff, or for some of the more, close up and close and wide. This was not a long lens kind of thing. And, I'm a bit of a one-trick pony, and I do steal people's ideas. And really, I think part of it is that, hey, you got to look at what they did for ants or whatever, Ant-Man. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, no, they took a Komodo and they took little Zeiss lenses, and that's how they used it on a stick. And so I can't take any credit for any of that because they did it, but it worked out great. And basically, it was a little Komodo. That's a great camera, by the way, but that with some of that stuff like that for tight spaces. It's 35 gate as well. It doesn't have the 18 stops or whatever, 15 stops, but you gotta flex your lighting muscles if you need to at times, and if hopefully you don't have to. But that camera was amazing to shoot. Victor, the hand.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
How was that matching the LF to the Komodo in post? Was that like kind of a struggle, or did it actually come out pretty easy?
I think it's a great question. I mean, we did send footage to our colorist in LA to make sure that it was going to be okay. He didn't seem to be two-faced. He seemed to be okay. And then also, the thing was, what I was when you see like, drone footage, most of the time it's not even the same camera that's, so, but there's a certain
DJI Inspire.
Yeah, no, there's not. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, there's sort of. I think there's a bit of there's a sort of a license, not a license, but it's kind of its own world. When you're following thing, you're not really. It's kind of the thin camera. It's not so far to the right that you're like, oh my God, this is like, Fisher Price camera,
Right.
type, if you remember that camera, but you can't, it's still within the range, but it's still believable. But it's the world of, following things that I started it that way, thinking to, when you look at, whether it be the, not the photosonics, but if you think of the phantom cameras,
mm-hmm.
that's a brutal sometimes. I think they've come out with some really good ones lately, but the latitude on those cameras wasn't great. The color science was kind of okay, but when you were matching it to say the Alexa, you're like, or at the time anyway, suddenly you're seeing clearly. I was seeing it different. I mean, it's you really needed to crush a lot of the blacks and to match it to the phantom if the scene was really like a match cut or things like that. So I thought there was a little bit of license but it worked out great. I really liked the idea. It's just a simple camera, it's like playing guitar with like two strings, it does what it wanted to, and so that worked out great. We had a little stick, a little remote. The wheels are remote, so you could operate the camera from this, I don't know, this Ronin thing or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Ronin 2, and the operator had his own wheels, and so we had the A B camera operator would hold the stick, we'd push him on the dolly, and we tried every possible thing from, because we knew we were going to be following thing quite a bit, and we wanted something that was small and compact enough. And we tried everything from, putting a periscope to a stabilized head to everything. And at the end, the simplest thing, and that works, the most efficient one, was just a stick with a little gimbal head and a remote head over there. And that was the best. And no fuss. Yeah. Yeah.
Versus, I can imagine like trying to set up every time there's a shot of thing, you got to set up one of the, the skater cam, like on a dolly, and try to do that whole now for every single shot of him.
Bring out the 18K. It's like, those skater scope, you need a lot of light. Yeah, exactly. So the simpler things sometimes are the better ones. Ultimately, is my feeling. If it takes more than 5 minutes to talk about it, then.
Well, that actually brings us to what I was going to touch on earlier when we were talking about Euphoria and stuff. But I was looking at some of the behind the scenes shots from Wednesday, and the lighting setups do seem pretty simple.
It's very simple. Yeah.
What was kind of the approach to generally, because it is a stylized film, but it's not like overly, on the Tim Burton scale, it feels kind of in the middle.
Yeah. Thanks. I aim for the middle. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, no, I think it is with everything else. Yeah, I mean, Tim Burton's amazing film, with some amazing DPs. But I think, this was the story of Wednesday. We didn't go too dark in that sense, but at the same time, it's still a kid's story, for many kids. But the lighting sequences were simple. We didn't try to recreate a new wheel, or we didn't try to re-engineer anything. We built a lot of negative, we didn't crush the blacks necessarily so much so in post or on the DIT or anything like that. It was all done in camera. But the best thing I found, and this was not many times have I ever had that experience, is having one camera, and that's it. We shot the whole thing with one camera. Meaning one crew. We had a B camera crew that was sitting in the camera truck, but most of the time it was just one camera. So you really are focusing on your frame. You're focusing on your lighting and all that. And you really can take the time, I think, and I don't say that, I'm not saying that every show should be like that. But for that show, I think it was perfect. And Tim, the producers would come up to me and say, tell Tim to have can we push another camera? And I would go to Tim and say, I think we can put another camera. I was like, let's try it. And then he was like, no, it's taking away my attention.
Oh, I mean, actually, you know what? One thing that the other day I watched a series of unfortunate events.
Oh yeah,
and I was
wait, remind me. It was a good one. I remember.
Yeah, it was Lemony Snicket. Jim Carrey was in it, and what's his face? Not Darius. Who shot it? I was just looking it up. I'm such an idiot.
I know I've seen it
because I started. I've got a few hundred ASC magazines, and so I was like trying to find the one that had that in it, and I was doing a whole bunch of research on it. Let's see here. Was it Darius? Oh, this is great for listeners. Just
I know. But it's series of unfortunate events. I know I've seen it, and I liked it. That was a little while ago. It was not recent.
Yeah, that was 2006.
2006, yeah.
But one thing, come on. For heaven's sake. This is bad. Anyway, yeah. Emmanuel Lubezki,
yeah.
And one thing that I thought, that lighting style that he has, where it's a pretty obvious key, but it just works every time because it's so massive.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you did that in Wednesday, but when I saw Lemony Snicket, I was like, because I had seen Wednesday when it came out,
right?
I didn't rewatch it, but they gave me similar vibes, and I was like, it's hilarious that like a man can set the. Speaking of Bleach Bypass,
yeah,
he was really setting the tone with the Bleach Bypass in that film. They had just developed a new like ENR thing at eFilm, I guess.
Amazing.
And that's a great looking film.
I gotta watch it again, but I mean, I know I liked it. I did, but yeah, it is a high key. I mean, that seems to be Tim was into that when we were filming it, and definitely we even pushed it a little bit more in post after. Definitely more of a high key. I know it's weird. Well, I'm spitting on myself now. I do it, but basically, it is weird sometimes. I think the other DP that came in, lovely guy, Stephen Fierce, and who did the remaining episodes. I remember on his first week when he arrived, we had already been shooting, and I remember I think he made a comment like, where he was like throwing his hands in the air or something, and say, where's the light coming from?
Right.
And I was kind of like, it's interesting. I mean, I think, there are times, it has to be motivated, but there are times that, you have to look at it. I think sometimes you look at the frame, you look at the lighting, and you just kind of feel like, is the feeling right for what's happening within the frame? And, there is all the logical explanations. Well, no, hang on, the lighting, no. Then it's, yes, but ultimately, I think does the scene, it's almost like going back to a bit of photography. Does the frame feel good? Does the character feel good? Is it too much? Is the background too? That was the other thing. I was really happy not to be shooting everything. I know some shows, I'd been watching shows that were shooting everything wide open. Bloody hell. So to be able to appreciate the sets and to see the scope and to shoot on wide lenses, and that's nice. I find. But yeah, the high key for sure. Yeah.
My first of all, one thing that I've said almost every episode of this podcast, and also in all the articles I write, is I'm trying to get people away from technically correct, because feeling correct is always better.
Yeah.
My favorite quote was like, where's the light coming from? And the answer is, it's the same place the music's coming from.
Yeah. That's good. I'll use that.
It feels good, and if everyone looks at it and goes, that looks good, and then their second question is, wait, where is it? It doesn't matter. The audience is no. It's the same thing with like you were saying, it's 5218 film grain. No audience member knows which fucking film grain we're using. It doesn't matter. Use the Da Vinci one. It's fine.
It's fine. Exactly. No, exactly. No, it has to feel correct with what's happening in front. And if it, you'll notice right away, oh my God, this is too hard, or this is too soft, and this is too punchy, or any of that. But definitely, no, it has to feel right, and it doesn't apply just for lighting. I think it applies for everything. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, how were you treating those kind of key lights? Were you just doing massive 12 eyes and putting a 360 through it, or were you kind of, was there one solution?
Was there one solution? Not necessarily. There was all kinds. I think, for the exteriors, we used big rags with lots of negatives. And what was exciting in Europe is they have these, instead of condors, they use Manitous or something of the like, which is like a Gradall, really large platform with the guys at the bottom driving the vehicle, and he controls everything from the bottom. So you don't have anyone up in up in the basket. And this thing goes up to 100 feet up in the air. You can put any kind of weight on there. So for an 80-foot condor, you have these things that move around so fast. So we had a lot of negative on the show for daytime, where I would have a 20 by or a 25 by negative on the top, like a tent literally, and then another 25 or 30-foot negative dropping back with another 20 behind camera at times, just for one person looking at the camera. I was just,
it looks really good though.
It looks great, and if you can, if you're AD, if you have the time, which that's not always the case, but having those tools that move fast was very good. A condor would have never met. So that was really interesting to see. And I've been trying ever since to see if they, here in LA, if they can have that. But it's condor takes forever. And yeah, sometimes. But as far as the light itself, what we use, I think it was a variety over there. For space, sometimes we used light mats. I do like the light mats because they were quite even at last for soft light. Again, here I go to soft light. We had tubes. I think for any kind of hard light, we stuck to the classics. There was nothing. I was in Romania, which is people care a lot about the work they did, but it's not like the latest and the greatest of that has arrived. It's
right.
And so we had very basic equipment at times, and the gaffer had that was an anomaly. He had that one light that did fine, great.
Yeah.
But we had tubes. We did a lot of Dapron, tubes with Dapron sometimes on the desk for a little kiss on the eye here and there. Very basic stuff. Nothing more to that. It was just placing the light, really, more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, but that's always great to hear, right? Because it could, certainly for newer films, especially shot like in Atlanta or here or whatever, it feels like you're kind of chasing the dragon where everyone has these new crazy things.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, will I ever be able to catch up to that? It's like,
yeah.
A show like Wednesday could be shot with a few tubes and the world's only orbiter.
Yeah, exactly. The world. I think there was a few tubes, a few lights. I mean, but they're basic lights. Yeah, nothing fancy. I mean, I think one of the things that we had that was, to me, that I had never worked with was an HMI mole beam.
Oh.
I've always worked with tungsten mole beams, and there happens to be a 20K HMI mole beam that we used in the library. There's some weird secret library that takes place. Originally, like I said earlier, I'm like a one-trick pony and got no original thoughts. But there was I took the idea of I remember in Roger Deakins had done the 2049 Blade Runner, the sequence where you have the water shimmers.
Yep.
Pushing, which is a beautiful pieces of photography, I thought. And we tried something like that on a different scale, obviously. And I think Sam was like, no, this is not going to work.
Were you like doing because I think for that one, he shot through a plexiglass thing. Were you doing that or bouncing it off? Because
no.
People put a mirror in the bottom.
The bouncing is interesting for the floor, for sure. For the walls, bouncing could be cool. But I mean, what we did, literally, we had a 20K HMI mole beam hung at the very top on chain waters of the stage, and we had the other department built us a little plexiglass pool that was only 8 feet, and I think we had inquired with the Blade Runner crew, and because they shot in Hungary, and I knew some of the grips and the gaffer that worked on it, the Hungarian gaffer, Christian Paluk, amazing gaffer, by the way. And he told us, no, I think his box that they shot through was like 20 feet by 20.
Oh yeah.
So I could not, no, production would have not been too happy, or put me on the first flight back to LA, I think, right after that.
It is funny how, because I'm on Deakins' forums as well, it's fun to read.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it is funny how he has this reputation of being so simple. He's like, no, just one bounce and we're good. And then you'll look at his lighting plans and you're like, bro, you have 700 lights in here. What are you simple? It's like, yeah, right. But it's like a simple lineup of 700 lights. And you're like, I guess. A lot of space light.
Yeah. Amazing stuff.
I did want to ask about the difference kind of between your more modern work and the kind of work you were doing. I assume you still do it, but for like beauty commercials and stuff. Because I feel like those are two, these days, a lot of education about lighting seems to come from photographers, online mostly. And that can be a lot of like beauty lighting style. So I was wondering if you could juxtapose your makeup and beauty commercial work versus kind of your television and narrative work.
Yeah, it's amazing. You really are asking good questions. I mean, the part of the beauty work that I did, and it was a great learning curve and a really great, wonderful learning process of how to photograph a woman's face or a body. It started off with the music videos I did on Lenny Kravitz, where, they were younger ladies, younger girls, but following forward from there, I think, and onwards with commercials, obviously these are commercials and commercial lighting, commercial beauty lighting, it doesn't feel right, obviously, to do anything like that, obviously, with the amount of light that sometimes I was bringing just to shoot a face, many different ways to do it, obviously, and many different things. I know, but I think a lot of layers was something I remember doing with commercials, with beauty products and whatnot, where basically we, sometimes I had two 12 vials. And then in front of that, two 12 vials. And then in front of that, I had, that was if I had the space, obviously. And then in front of that, I had a 140, that was towards the end. I remember I had a 140 Breezy. Breezy were quite hot at the time. And
like parabolic softbox.
The parabolic, like kind of half egg kind of thing, very deep, and they had different materials inside, whether it be a silver lining or white, shiny or soft bounces inside. And then at times sometimes I even had another light. So it was just like, it just pushed. And these ladies, they were models. They didn't really need it, but definitely I could see the different shimmers and different quality very subtly in the faces. And this was also a beauty product, cream type stuff that was being sold. But there was a lot of learning of what feels good, what doesn't look good at the time. And it kind of, after that, doing narrative, obviously doesn't make sense. You cannot bring two 12 eyes in a Breezy every time you look at a woman's face. That's completely ludicrous,
The Marilyn Monroe era of cinematography.
No, well, but it's just, it's two different worlds, two entirely different worlds. But I will tell you one thing I remember, where my first movie I did was called Celeste and Jesse with Lee Krieger. We had was with Rashida Jones. She was the lead, also the executive producer, with Andy Samberg. And Rashida was producing the movie. She was busy even after, not only she had to remember her lines when she went home, but she had also to deal with, managing the film as well. Right. And we were doing a scene with, I think it's Rashida and Sam and Andy, and it's a pretty intense scene at a bar. There's no one else there. It's just a bar. And I learned very quickly that you have to be very careful how you photograph a person at times. And you have to be very aware of their chin, a woman, that their chin, the nose. And I remember, I didn't do a good job that day. And I got the director and I got another very good email for Rashida, like, how can you guys, it was a French over. So, over the backs, then she was low profile, and this was not very pretty at the end of the chin. there's things you have to be careful for. And I think ever since then, I've always been very careful for that instances of things. But then, you moving forward from there, working with someone like Blake Lively, who is, in front of the camera, the camera likes her very, very much.
Right. Easy to photograph and very simple. But so that was moving forward and very, using a little bit of haze. I remember that was a thing, and less so now. Is everything ever since COVID has become very controversial. Sure, yeah.
Everything's just fine either way. I think that the haze thing, it's good if you want. You got to be able to kind of, I've always said that, you can't just stick to one thing. You got to be able to do different styles of haircuts, so to speak. You can't just do one haircut. So if you've got haze, great. If you don't, then so be it. You have to figure it around. But the haze will help definitely with the skin, especially if you build a lot, or if you crush your blacks a little bit, but you keep your highlights and you play around. You will not feel the haze so much. So it won't be these horrible shafts. I mean, not horrible, but you won't be like Excalibur, bloody hell,
right,
doing it. But it's a mixture between your key, the contrast, everything, your early levels, and the moment the haze starts to dissipate, then everything starts to change. So you really need to have some good people working the haze, and then you change lens, and then everything changes again. But it helps with the skin, and that's something I remember trying at one point very much. I did some season of the morning show here in LA, which was really nice to be in LA, and yeah, it's good. I think it has its own, its own audience. I mean, definitely, I've always. Everyone on the show is really lovely. I never quite understood the topic of it all, because I've never cared much for rich people's problems.
Right,
that was the thing. But sometimes you're there, you're doing a job and you're doing it, and people are lovely and very kind, and off you go. But the haze would have been something that would have helped, I think. And I think only once I was able to put haze on a set with Reese Witherspoon, and it was fine. But nowadays the other thing is people. That's another thing with younger DPs who do not know how to photograph ladies at times. Yeah. I'm not saying that I fully do, but they somehow, and I encountered this with other DPs who are the old DP to me, and suddenly they're not being very judicial with how to photograph a face. They've never been taught, and then suddenly everything's getting fixed in post, and everybody looks like not a very good version of themselves, and it just looks like a cartoon. And that's I feel kind of, I wish that wasn't the case so much, because it's the same program.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, I was going to say, two things. The one thing that I was told, because when I was in college, I was in that same boat, both as a photographer and when I was shooting, was I would get notes back from women, and they were like, we need to reshoot this. And in my head, I was like, no, you look great.
Yeah.
And they're like, even if I'll speak for this imaginary woman, but it's like, yeah, I know I do, but you didn't highlight that. And I remember there was one, she wasn't older, but there was one like adult woman that I was filming, and she pulled me aside because she had worked in film. She wasn't just an actress. And she goes, listen, you just need to do your buddy a favor.
Yeah.
And I've taken that to heart my whole life. Anyone, it doesn't matter, women, men, doesn't matter. Anytime I'm filming someone, I have to turn on what I would consider, what I think younger DPs who don't know how to do this need to maybe call it is your douchebag brain.
Uh-huh.
You have to look at someone who's objectively pretty and go, I can make you prettier, and kind of think like that. And you'll jump that hurdle, thinking, obviously, I don't know how better to explain it. It's just like, do your buddy a favor. Just make them look the best version of them. Not that they need it, but that they want it.
Yeah.
It's like, and they're not going to ask you. Some of them might, but no, it's true. It makes everyone happy, especially the producers.
It's very, very well, the producer, but it's very true. I think definitely, again, it's looking at, the frame, the image, but I mean, it's actors. Yeah. I mean, I did that. That was another great email that I got saying, what the hell were you thinking? And even though, you know, she was stressed, she probably didn't get much sleep that night. It was the wrong angle for the camera to be.
Yeah.
And one had to take that in consideration, you know, for Rashida Jones. But, you know, they couldn't fire us because the movie was only $800,000. So there was no, you know, but, you know, that was a good learning curve. But I do, you know, faces are interesting. I think it's so much fun to light a face, to find what is that, you know, whether lighting or framing or whatever, to have that. I always find it always, it's a new experience every time. And I think for Wednesday, one of the things even with Tim Burton was something that he was like he had met her many times, and, you know, being amazing, you know, visual sense that he has. We always were trying. There was a moment where we wanted the camera to be a little higher, and there was that nice sweet spot with Jenna Ortega that just kind of, you know, just made her that more graphic kind of, not two-dimensional, but there was a graphic kind of feel to her with, you know, the big head, the big eyes, but then just that slight, the body wasn't so cartoonish, but it had a vibe that it was just like that fit for the show.
Right. And like you said, you were shooting wider too, so that probably accentuated it a little bit.
Yeah, the wider lenses were great. So that's why we use the signatures. They had a great range on the wide end, and at the end we kept to like 4 lenses at the end. It was like the 21, the 29. There was a 30 something, and there was a 49. And the 49 in large format, that was the longest lens we used on the first 4 episodes.
I find myself, because I have a C500 Mark II, so it's frame.
Yeah.
And amazing camera. I feel like more people should think about using it. Just so I'll be in demand more as an owner operator. But I find, like the 28, like it's the classic, you know, photographic trinity, the 28, the 35, and the 50 is kind of like all you really need. Yeah. And then maybe like a 65 for like inserts. But I have an 85. Still, it's like,
you know, you need the, you know, it depends on every show, but I think I like the idea of, you know, only having 4 lenses, and that is it's just because you have these tools, that doesn't necessarily, I mean, producers hate to hear that, but just because you have it doesn't mean you have to use them.
Yeah.
It's really being and you're creating a dialogue, creating a Bible, so to speak, I think. You know, for this moment, this is the right lens. For this moment, this is the right lens. And you know, I'm saying this, it doesn't mean that I believe that that's the only rule. I think, you know, rules are meant to be broken, but I do, everyone does it differently and definitely, but I do appreciate having 4 lenses, like 4 go-to lenses, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and also restriction creates creativity. Yeah. You know, if you have infinite options, you're going to make something bland. Yeah. But like, plenty of, what was it? Maybe not The Godfather, but like there's a whole list, I think, what's his name? Vashi Nidamansky, the editor, put together a list of all these films that only shot on like 1 lens. Maybe it was The Godfather, but it's like 28, really popular, 50, sometimes 35. But it's like sometimes movies are just shot on 1 good-looking lens. What was it? Army of the Dead. Did you see that?
No, I haven't. Was it? Is it the Zack Snyder film? That one?
Yeah. No. So my buddy who started Zero Optic, Alex Nelson, he made the lens for him. It's the Canon Dream lens, but he hadn't finished it, so there's no aperture in it. Oh, so he was at 0.95 the whole time, not as a Well, I mean, it was a creative choice, but like he had to. There was no changing it.
Oh my God. What lens? What was the millimeter on that lens? What was that?
That was a 50.
A 50.
So he shot. It was on the Monstro.
Yeah.
So it's full frame on the 50, 0.95 all the time with no aperture.
Yeah. That poor AC. He needs that.
Dude, right? Yeah. Where's the Oscar for focus pulling?
Exactly. No, focus pulling is amazing. Yeah. No.
I know we're kind of coming up on time, but I did want to, because we talked about Oppenheimer, then we talked about beauty lighting. So I have to ask, did you see Barbie?
No, I haven't. My son saw it. He went with his mom. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's so good. It's really fun. Right. It's fucking hilarious.
Is it? Okay, cool. I'm going to have to check it out then. That's amazing. I mean, Oppenheimer left me like,
Yeah.
That's how I went. Whew. My son fell asleep because it was late.
I actually nodded off a couple times in Oppenheimer, which is why I'm glad to go. But it was like 10 o'clock at night, and I had a few cocktails before. But
there you go.
Oppenheimer, the thing too with Oppenheimer is the pacing is relentless. I think I picked up on the fact that the score doesn't drop out until that scene where he and his girlfriend are like, they're nude in the room. I think that's the first. It's like an hour and a half into the movie, and that's the first time the score cuts out.
That's amazing.
And it's just like that. I think that drive is also exhausting if it's late at night. Like you have to see Oppenheimer earlier in the day.
It's 3 hours long? About
3:10. Yeah,
3:10. Well, I definitely, I really appreciate. I know there's a few things I missed. I'm gonna have to see it again just because it is dense. But what an amazing film! What an amazing film! And I thought it was very much within the times right now.
Yeah,
I mean, the end for me. I mean, it's not like a, definitely not a cliffhanger, but it's not. It's like the end is not like a mass. It's not like and then it's not like Gone with the Wind or anything like that. But the end does leave you wondering, and that was very impressive. So
I saw someone ask in the theater. Marvel has, for all the amazing films they've made, they've really ruined us all. Someone stands up and goes, "Is there an after credits scene?" And at Oppenheimer, and later, I wish someone had this quick clip in the theater, but I saw later I guess someone else had asked it online, and someone went, "You're living it, buddy." Yeah. We are the after credits scene.
Oh man, yeah, Marvel has done a number on us for sure. But but good stuff. I'd like to see the IMAX. You're gonna see the IMAX version. I think the IMAX thing, will be fantastic. Yeah. I think it's worth seeing a second time for sure.
I will say, it's the whole Barbenheimer thing. I think it's amazing that everyone has built a weird doubleheader that was made out of spite. I confirmed this with not an executive at WB, but someone who works near it that they released Barbie at the same time as Oppenheimer to get back at Nolan because he left WB to go. And so they're like, "Oh, we'll show him because Barbie's going to do numbers." And little did they know it was going to make everyone sell. But I just love that we, as an entire global culture, especially in the U.S., decided that this was like a holiday. Yeah, that we were all going to go to the movies and have a good time watching two completely different films.
And good ones. And good,
amazing,
because there's so much shit out there, and I honestly, there should be more movies like that. And it's like that is the reason when shit is going on, like shit's been going on in the world lately, to go see a film, even though you're being reminded that this out in Oppenheimer, but to be able to step away and to feel that's amazing. That is truly, that's what I think movies are all about, for sure.
Well, and at the Century City, there's a funny bit in Barbie about the Century City, which, but it's a great theater. The AMC there's great. But everyone in that mall. Have you been to that mall? No, dude, it's a ridiculous mall. Like it should be in Beverly Hills, but it's in Century City.
The Westfield.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's absurdly nice. Like it makes no sense. But everyone was wandering around the mall wearing pink. Like people are dressing up to go see movies, and no Oppenheimer dress ups, unfortunately. But
no skinny man with hats walking around. No short ties. Yeah, no, that's amazing. No, the pink. I did see a lot of people wearing pink as well, and I just asked my son, "Was this? It's not for our movie, is it?" He's like, "No, the other one."
Well, it's just I when people were saying, "Oh, Oppenheimer's going to save cinema," I was like, well, maybe in the sense that we're going to take more time and like allow thoughtful stories to be made and let auteurs kind of do their thing. And that film wasn't that expensive, all things considered. It wasn't. No. Well, it was the new Indiana Jones, like $300 million, and I think Oppenheimer was like 80 or 120 or but. Yeah, maybe it was less than that.
50. Well, they shot it in 54 days or something, which is amazing.
Yeah, crazy, right? Like, let them cook, as they say. But but I was like, Oppenheimer's not going to save cinema. Oppenheimer's going to save the art. Barbie's going to save the cinema. it sold 400 bajillion tickets, and everyone is like stoked on it. And it's a great film, and it's fun. Like, and I'm hoping to interview Rodrigo about it, because this is what I was going to say about the beauty lighting thing. The whole thing in Barbie world is lit very product. It's lit like Barbies. And I'm fascinated to know what the conversations were between Barbie world and the real world, because it's not super different, but it is very different.
Right. No, I got to check it out. No, I'm sure he did an amazing job. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's interesting lighting it like a product, very shiny product. So, yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen a movie where they literally were like, we're going to make it look like plastic boxes, and like we're going to make it look fake.
Yeah.
Maybe small soldiers.
Small soldiers running around. Yeah. No, but that's the fun. That's the fun. But I'm happy. I'm happy they're both doing really well this movie. I think that's fun. I've never seen so many people in a movie theater in 4 years now.
Yeah.
So it's refreshing.
Yeah. Even Avatar was in and out. Everyone loved it.
Yeah.
Like it was a quick thing.
I didn't see it, but yeah, was it worth all the? Was it $2 billion or something? Whatever it is.
No, but that's the thing though, is that again, that was a spectacle. That was 3D. You needed to see that movie in a giant 3D theater. It's not going to work on Blu-ray in the same way. I mean, it's gorgeous, but it's not. The 3D was technically incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times where I was just like, I don't know if this is a person in makeup or if this is digital. Like
really?
it was very, very, very well done. So if all that money went to the VFX teams, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what the next 6 movies like. I think there's 7 total. Yeah. So I think there might be 5 more.
I'll be 80 by the time the 7th one comes out. That's crazy.
Yeah.
No, but good on Cameron. Good on Cameron. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have fun. No, very, very cool. But no, it's interesting. But I'm happy. Again, I'm like repeating myself, but I'm happy these 2 movies that they're doing well. I'm trying to think of what else. Is there anything else? I know that I saw there's some interesting films that were before with it's very small movies that were coming out called there was Corsage, which was interesting, with the same actress from that I'd seen a couple of months ago. No, more than a couple of months ago. Anyway, other films out there.
Yeah. The
titles. So yeah,
sure. I'm watching a lot more Criterions. The Criterion stream, nice. But I saw one called The Portable Door. That I guess it came out in Australia, and it's on Amazon, I think. But I guess we're not promoting streamers right now. But it's got Christoph Waltz in it and Sam Neill, and it's very similar to kind of Lemony Snicket or Wednesday kind of vibe to it. Mm-hmm. But it came out like last year or this year. Never heard of it. I guess it came out in Australia for like 5 seconds and then went straight to streaming. But that was a good one.
That was a good one. Okay. The Portable Door.
Yeah.
I have to check that out. Yeah.
It's fun. It's somewhere between a kid's movie and, dark kids movie. I like Lemony Snicket, but
it's interesting. Yeah.
Well, I did want to ask, because I forgot to, we got a little sidetracked and then I'll let you go. But when you were talking about like working quickly with those European condors, on Wednesday, what were some of the tricks because I know any television show, you're on a tight schedule. Plus, you shot the first 4 episodes and then someone else shot the first 8.
No, the first 4 episodes.
Or sorry, the next 4.
In the next 4,
12 episodes.
Yeah. No, the 8 episodes total. So we shot them out of order. So Tim and I did the first block, so 1 and 2, and we started in August. And by mid-October, the next director with the other DP went on to shoot episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so they shot them out of order. And then when we came back in end of October, beginning of November, we started shooting episodes 4 and 5. 3 and 4, sorry.
But question being, what were some of the things speaking about the Euro condors that helped you guys work quickly beyond just like being simple, but also the communication between teams. How did you keep the look consistent between each other?
Well, the look, as far as what made things move faster, I think the crew moves very fast. I mean, first there's like the grips. It was more the European system, so they don't cut the light. It's the electricians that do that. So it's not like in America, or it's more of an English hybrid system. But the grips only touch the cameras, mainly cameras. So any kind of camera support or cranes, platforms, anything to do with cars and whatever. And the thing that I found really amazing and how quick they first of all, there's 12 grips, 12 set grips. I've never had that many grips on a set, and electricians, by the way. It was insane. But they don't have the latest, greatest gadgets, which was fine, but they do make up with how fast they work, being that many of them. I've never seen 130 feet of track laid so quickly in a muddy forest, and it didn't take more than 25 minutes. I mean, these guys were super fast, and I have to give them for that. They did a really good job. But then, with cranes and things like that, it's a little bit more complicated, and we try to keep things very simple in that aspect. Also, the other thing is, while using one camera, some producers would say, well, no, we need two cameras to, one wide and one tight or whatever the hell, But we were very super careful about, not careful, but we were very economical in our coverage, but also in our storytelling. We were very specific. And is this warrant a close-up? Do we need to go to close-up? Like, some of the shows are like, you got to give the close-up. He's like, but he's going to the fucking bathroom. Like, why do you need a close-up? The guy's saying, what I mean? It's just things like that. That's just like, it's very redundant in television at times. And it's kind of a very formulaic. But here we were able to move faster with our telling the story, where this scene was important. This scene is not so much intense that you need to spend the energy and the time to work on that. So we were very diligent. And I will say Tim was very... his time management is extraordinary. You wouldn't think of it because he comes like very eccentric, and you would think like he doesn't look at his watch or anything like that. But I mean, he is very exceptionally great with time. And even to the point where there was one time that you would think that's not being wise with your time, but there was one time where we had an hour and a half left in our day. We still had a page scene, a new page, page scene to do. And he was like, you know what? And we were going to be coming back the next day to this location. Most directors I know would probably have been like, we got to knock it out. We got to do it, blah, 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 because we got to same thing with ADs. They would be like, hey, got to be on their second production report, bullshit, this and that. But, if you say Tim Burton, nobody says no to Tim Burton for one, but Tim, which is quite extraordinary. But he goes, you know what, let's rehearse the scene and we're going to sleep on it.
Oh, I thought you were just going to say they're going to skip it. Rehearsing, it's a great idea.
We're going to rehearse it and we're going to sleep on it. And I think, and tomorrow, if something comes up tonight, and we'll do it, we'll knock it out tomorrow morning. The lighting doesn't change much. There's nothing much different within the area that we're shooting. Everything's pretty much similar. Everything's in place. We're coming back. We're here for, however many minutes. And I really, really appreciated that, because it just kind of, sometimes you undo the work by, he was very adamant about not doing any overtime. There were days, obviously, it was a half hour or 40 minutes, but generally we're within our time schedule. But he didn't want to work more than, 10, 11. I think we were on a 11 hour or 10 hour. I can't remember. And it was, it was COVID time. So they had the French hour, the French lunch thing going. But he said, David, if we go, he wasn't telling me specifically, but he would tell me, the thing is, if you do more than a certain amount of hours, you actually aren't doing all the work you've done.
Totally.
And I thought that was really wise. And ever since then, I'm like, obviously, like I said, nobody says no to Tim, so it's easy to go along these routes. But so that was one of the things, is having definitely a director who knows what he wants, and that there's not like an army of producers who all want to be directing, and therefore they all have their say. This is like you following one person, and that was extremely refreshing. And you move faster because it's one vision. It's not diluted by 20 different people and so forth. But I think moving fast. So that was that. Trying to think of, there was something else I wanted to say, but I've lost track. Anyway, that was.
No, I was just going to say, keeping the look consistent between teams.
Keeping the look consistent between teams. I think we had a great crew. It was the same crew that basically it's like me jumping off one horse and going to another. It's the same thing for the crew that they kept going with. Stefan Thiessen, who I think he had less time. Unfortunately, they didn't give him the same amount of time to him and his directors. So I think considering, we had 40 days to shoot 2 episodes with Tim Burton, and we had also a third camera that would do cleanup. So anything that was not, whether it be inserts or sometimes photographing thing, at times there was a different unit altogether. But Stefan, under the conditions that he had much less time to do what he was asked to and try to keep a look as coordinated as much as possible, I think he did a pretty good job. But it's not easy. But it was the gaffer, the key grip, the operator, they all try to keep, and the showrunners also, they try to keep the feel. But I know that, when the main director, when Tim leaves, I think, sometimes there can be a vacuum in the direction at times, even because it's such a big show to carry, and therefore, something binging. But anyway, I think it's not easy. And I've been on the other side as well, where I had to copy or I had to simulate the look of another DP. And that's not very, very easy. And it's not always very gratifying either, because it's not the way something you would do, the way you would do it. So
yeah,
not easy. Not a good.
I mean, there's certainly like, I did second unit on this one movie, and it was the first time that I had worked on a large film, and I was like, and I found that second unit was fantastic because I didn't have to think that hard. They would show me clips from what the other guy shot, and I just went, oh yeah, okay, just make it look. That's the other side of things where you do you're just like, oh, just copy, easy.
Yeah, second unit's great. You don't have all the pressure of that. But Stefan was not second unit. That was definitely
right. Yeah,
he was like definitely first unit with all the pressures that kind of came back from after Tim was gone. There was no producer really necessarily all the time on set, and suddenly when we were gone, suddenly everyone kind of
right.
It's like a current, it comes right back.
Yeah, all the toys come to life when the parents are gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it was fun. It was good, and I think thumbs up on him. I know it wasn't easy. He had much less time to do it.
Sure.
Which he had more stuff to do too. That's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for spending the extra time with me. I'm gonna let you go. I'm sure you want to hang out with your wife and shit. But I would whenever we get back to work, I'd love to have you back on and chat about whatever that is, because I had a lot of fun. Time flew by.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Yeah, no, thank you for having me, and definitely, keeping me in mind.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production. It's produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan, and distributed by Pro Video Coalition. As this is an independently funded podcast, we rely on support from listeners like you. So if you'd like to help, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/frameandrefpod. We really appreciate your support, and as always, thanks for listening.